It doesn't take a lot of money to live your dream life. All it takes is a thankful heart, determination, and a little creativity. Her mother immigrated from Venezuela as a young woman and met her father in a small farming town in Indiana. Author Kristina Ellis was living the dream life as a little girl, but at the age of 7, her father passed away from brain cancer. Her family struggled financially after the loss, but God was faithful, and even though considered low income, her mom figured out how to give her family a great life within a price that she could afford. Today, Kristina shares her journey of overcoming significant obstacles to win $500,000 in scholarships and graduate from her dream school. And she's helping others to figure out the same thing and how to live a dream life without a huge budget. This is her story of unshakable faith. This is Today's Nashville. Kristina, I am just so glad that we get a chance today and sit down and get to share your faith and your amazing story. And so I'm just so glad we're here today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So tell me about your journey from the very beginning. I know that your mother migrated from Venezuela. Let's go back and if you can share.
She came over when she was in her 20s. She actually got a scholarship when she was in Venezuela. She had a group of friends that went to take a test, and she actually was kind of a tag-along. She didn't know what they were doing and wanted to just go hang out with her friends, and little did she know that it was a test to win a scholarship to go to one of 8 countries, and she was the only one that passed out of all her friends. And they called her up and said, you have 2 weeks to decide if you want to move to a different country. And
move to a different country or visit?
To move.
Oh,
yeah, to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So she picked the United States and so began her journey here in the States. And she actually went to a little community college in my hometown and ended up meeting my dad, and they fell in love.
Indiana, right?
Indiana.
I'm a Hoosier too.
Ah, yeah.
Indiana.
I love it. And they fell in love and started a family, which, so began my life. And we had just a really beautiful life with me and my mom and my brother and my dad.
Now, are you the oldest?
My brother is older than I am. And unfortunately, whenever I was 3 years old, my dad got diagnosed with brain cancer. And it was really tough because there were constant seizures. We had to kind of slowly watch him deteriorate. It was a blessing and a challenging time because on one hand, I always tell people when they say they're sorry my dad passed, that I got to kind of watch him live like he was dying. Like, we got to spend a lot of time together and make beautiful memories.
Did you know what was going on at age 3 or?
Not quite that young, but over time I did. He would have pretty frequent seizures and just really struggled. He eventually lost feeling in his arms and legs, and he ended up passing away when I was 7 years old. And it was really tough. He was such an amazing person and just a positive influence in our lives. So it was pretty jarring for my family. My mom, being from Venezuela, she didn't really speak strong English at the time and was kind of overwhelmed with her new life. She had to figure out how to be a single mom now in a country where she didn't grow up. And she had a lot of people encouraging her to go back to Venezuela to be near her family and to have extra support. But her thing was that her kids had already been through so much, and she didn't want us to have to start a whole new life in a different country. So she decided to stay and fight and do the best she could to raise us. And even though she had a lot of grief that she had to go through, she just wanted to push through and give us the best opportunities possible.
She sounds amazing.
Yeah, she's a fighter.
Did she have support here in Indiana, or was it mostly people from home in Venezuela that was persuading her to come home?
Well, thankfully, my dad's side of the family is incredible. So we had, my grandparents, aunts and uncles all in the area, and they just took her in like she was their own. So thankfully, we had a lot of great support, and we're from a small town. So we had the support of the small town, and our church was awesome. We constantly had people wrapping their arms around us, delivering meals, and just making sure that we knew we were loved. So even though it was a hard journey and it was lonely at times, we did have a really beautiful town to exist in and to kind of come and support us.
So you had a church family.
We did.
So you knew Jesus at a young age?
Yeah, it made a huge difference. My grandparents actually were missionaries in Haiti. They led over 50 trips to Haiti. So they definitely had a very strong community in that area and a very strong faith.
What about your life after? When he passed away, you started junior high, high school. What was like then?
It was really hard. I mean, we were in pretty deep grief. My mom and my brother, they expressed their emotions more outwardly, and we were all grieving. I went inward, and so I actually developed a pretty hidden pattern of self-abuse and self-destruction. I got pretty dark for a while. I spiraled. I was always the kid. I was in middle school. I was always the kid that had a smile on my face, but just really struggled with just my dad's loss and trying to figure out how to move forward. And I hit a spot where things actually got dark enough that I thought about taking my own life. I actually had a plan. We had a big argument in my house one night. Everyone stormed out, and I had a bottle of pills and planned on that being the end. And there was a phone call that came through, and the phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And I tried to ignore it, but it didn't stop ringing. And it just happened to be my aunt, one of my favorite aunts, who was calling late at night, just out of the blue, 10 o'clock at night. I was like, that doesn't happen normally. And I picked it up, and she was just calling to talk. And we ended up talking for 2 hours till like midnight. And I woke up the next day, the sun was shining. It was beautiful outside. And then the enormity of what I'd almost done came flashing back. And I realized that was just a really pivotal moment in my life, because I made a decision that next morning that I could not go that dark again, that I could not live in that place of darkness. And that's really the moment that I started fighting for my life and chose, instead of going down dark trails of self-destruction, to start getting involved in activities and choosing positive outlets to put my emotions in.
Did you receive any outside help, or did you just make that decision on your own in the Lord, or did you tell anybody what was going on?
Yeah, I actually feel like that phone call was a call from the Lord. I mean, in hindsight now, I'm like, that just feels like God, snapping me out of it and drawing me into Him. I didn't actually tell anybody about it at the moment. I just poured into activities and kind of made that decision within myself. I did have good support around me. That aunt that called was one of my best friends. As we grew up, she just always was there to nurture us. So thankfully, I did have a good community around me, but in terms of telling anybody how dark I had gone, I didn't tell anyone. I just worked really hard on myself to move forward.